Linear thinking is a way of reasoning in a straight line. It assumes that everything happens in a sequence. This cause leads to that effect. Step A leads to step B, then C, D, and finally the destination. This is the dominant mode of thinking in today's society, taught in schools, applied in businesses, management, technology, and even daily life. It seems clear, logical, easy to manage, and simple to teach. And because of that, it has become the default way of thinking. The danger lies in people not realizing they're thinking like machines. They believe they're in control of their thoughts, when in reality, they're just following a pre-programmed track. When someone faces a problem, they immediately ask, "How do I overcome this?" That's linear thinking. People assume that every problem needs a solution, every failure requires a new strategy, and every suffering must have a cause to be eliminated. It all sounds reasonable, but that very reasonableness creates an invisible maze, trapping the mind in an endless loop of cause and effect. The trap of this thinking is that it fosters the illusion that everything can be analyzed, measured, controlled, and optimized. But life isn't a math problem. Not every emotion has a reason. Not every action leads to the expected outcome. And not every question needs an answer. Linear thinking can't see the whole picture. It only sees fragmented slices. It can't grasp the illogical, comprehend randomness, or touch the vibrant depths that words can't describe. Someone who lives entirely by this thinking becomes rigid, quick to judge, unable to listen deeply, and struggles to appreciate beauty. They're always trying to solve every issue, even things that shouldn't be solved, like love, sadness, or silence. They live like a machine, optimizing for efficiency but lacking soul. Worse, linear thinking makes people believe truth lies ahead, that if they follow the right steps and processes, they'll eventually reach a place called happiness, success, or enlightenment. But life doesn't follow that sequence. In this video, we'll dive deeper to see that linear thinking doesn't just limit us intellectually. It erodes our ability to live fully, feel deeply, and let go. Not because it's wrong, but because it's too narrow to hold the vastness of life. Few realize that what's called learning to think is often just learning to think within a pre-programmed mold, a linear mold. From childhood, kids are taught that doing A correctly leads to reward B, and making mistake C results in punishment D. This cause and effect thinking repeats in lessons, in grade sheets, in how adults interact with children. No one teaches us that one action can lead to multiple outcomes, or to nothing at all. No one points out that life has blind spots the mind can't calculate. And no one shows us that some things don't need thinking, just seeing. The education system mostly teaches linearly. A math problem has a correct answer. An essay has an introduction, body, and conclusion. A test has a clear grading scale. Even creativity is measured by rubrics. Everything must have a process, step 1, step 2, step 3. If you do it all correctly, you get a high score. Thinking is packaged as a tool for achievement, and gradually, we forget that thinking was once a living, spontaneous, unrepeatable flow. Not just education, social media, modern culture, and media also program us to think in one way. Social media floods us with 3 steps to success, 5 morning must dose, 7 habits of the rich, all reinforcing the illusion that life is a machine. Input the right things, and you'll get the desired output. But real life isn't linear. It has no formula. It's full of surprises, interruptions, and unannounced turns. Linear thinking isn't just a mold. It's a way of training the mind. And when trained too long in one way of thinking, we no longer see that we're thinking in a way at all. We think it's natural. That's the greatest danger. When people don't know they've been shaped, they lose the ability to choose. Have you ever noticed that in your most creative, awake, or even painful moments, you don't think sequentially. When you deeply love someone, you don't analyze to love. When you experience loss, you don't reason to feel sad. True emotions, true understanding, and true beauty often don't follow a step-by-step process. But because we're so deeply programmed, even when we love, we try to manage the relationship, set KPIs, expectations, and adjust strategies. The problem isn't education, media, or society. It's that the mind has been conditioned to the point that it doesn't know it's conditioned. We don't need to abandon linear thinking entirely, but we must face the mechanism operating in our heads. Not to fight it, but to stop relying on it as our only reflex. When we see that our way of thinking is a system, not our essence, we create space to live, feel, and listen to something beyond logic. When linear thinking dominates the mind, it doesn't just limit creativity or perception. It turns us into machines constantly scanning for results. The mind no longer lives fully in the present. It's always scanning life to check if we're on the right track, meeting goals, or making progress. It evaluates every experience through the lens of, what am I getting from this? And where will this take me next? This lifestyle seems proactive, but is utterly reactive, because every action is conditioned by an imagined future outcome. We don't speak to express, but to be recognized. We don't learn for learning's sake, but to gain something afterward. We don't meditate to be present, but to attain something after years of practice. Life becomes a chain of conditioned reactions, not living, but chasing results. A mind in this state is like a metal detector, constantly scanning and only paying attention when it finds something valuable. Simple moments, like a gentle breeze, a fleeting glance, or the silence between two breaths, are ignored because they lead nowhere. They're useless, so the mind doesn't register them. And so, we lose the ability to live each moment fully. Worse, when the mind is obsessed with results, it starts manipulating reality. It no longer lets things unfold as they are. It constantly edits, optimizes, and forces. The person in front of you isn't a living being, but a means to an end, feeling loved, important, or right. Even you stop living as a human, you become a self-improvement project, trying to perfect yourself daily. That's why so many people today feel exhausted without knowing why. No one's forcing them to overwork, but they can't stop. The mind constantly compares, measures, and feels inadequate. The filter of expectations never turns off. Even when resting, the mind quietly questions, is this rest good for my health? Am I wasting time? Even moments of doing nothing get pulled into the web of analysis. And so, life is drained from within, not by material lack, but because every moment is scrutinized, judged, and categorized. Nothing is allowed to just be. Everything must become something. A conversation must lead to closeness, a lesson to progress, a kind act to feeling like a good person. All are bound in the mind's constant evaluation. Love, which is a vast realm where emotions and life blend naturally without reason or sequence, gets distorted when linear thinking intrudes. It turns love into a conditional emotional transaction where people no longer love to live, but live to be loved. Early on, many learn, if I'm good, I'll be loved. If I do right, I'll be valued. And so, a pattern forms, love tied to performance. We start believing that if we're kind enough, listen enough, accommodate enough, or forgive enough, we'll be loved as we hope. But life doesn't work like a formula, and people aren't functions with inputs and outputs to apply theorems to. So when we give so much, love sincerely, strive to understand, accept, and sacrifice, yet the other person doesn't respond as expected, the disappointment isn't just emotional. It's a collapse of the thinking system. It strikes a core belief, I did everything right, so why didn't it work? We're not just sad, We're disoriented because the logic in our mind fails. Linear thinking turns love into a game with rules. Whoever loves more loses. Whoever initiates too much is weak. Whoever shows feelings first is judged. Even genuine emotions are trimmed to fit an efficient love strategy. We stop living authentically in relationships, constantly adjusting behavior to get the desired response. Love, instead of a vibrant space where two souls freely coexist, becomes a carefully directed stage, lacking sincerity, lacking breadth. Even when loving someone, we unconsciously check, is this person worth investing in? Will this love lead anywhere? Is it worth sacrificing more? These are all linear thinking's questions. It needs to know the outcome before allowing commitment. But love is never something that leads somewhere. It has no destination. It can only be lived fully in each present moment, or it ceases to be love. The deepest pain in love isn't rejection, it's feeling we did everything right and still didn't get what we thought we deserved. And when linear thinking is wounded, it doesn't know how to heal. It only repeats the old pattern in new relationships, learning lessons, adjusting behavior, finding a better fit. But the root remains unchanged. We love to achieve a result. Only when we see this can we begin to shift. We stop trying to be loved and start learning to be present in love without reason. We no longer see emotions as rewards for right actions, but as a flow that needs no control. Then love returns to its essence, a space where no one owns anyone, no one owes anything, and no one has to be right to gain anything. Not just in love, even in creativity, the supposedly freest realm, linear thinking manipulates how we produce the new. In every field, art, science, personal life, humans crave creativity. We want to explore new ideas, create what's never been, live a life that doesn't repeat. But paradoxically, most people today seek creativity through linear thinking. They want effective creativity methods to follow, 5 steps to break through ideas, or adopt habits of creative people. And so, from the first step, they fall into the very trap where creativity can't arise. Creativity's essence is a non-linear movement. It doesn't follow time, repeat processes, or obey logic. The most creative ideas often come unexpectedly, not in meetings, not while trying to think, but while washing dishes, lying idle, or even in dreams. That's when the mind stops searching and space opens for the unthought. Linear thinking, on the other hand, always demands sequence. It needs goals, timelines, clear plans. It must know where it is now, what's next, and when results will come. But ideas don't appear that way. They can't be monitored. They don't come because you seek them. They come when the mind is no longer forced to produce. That's why the harder some people try to be creative, the more stuck they get. They sit before a blank page, forcing themselves to write something new, but the more they push, the more they repeat the old. They want to think big but use outdated tools they think are innovative. What they create, though called ideas, is just recycling within safe limits. True breakthroughs arrive like uninvited guests, no warning, no plan. They arise from the void, where the mind no longer operates like a content factory. That creative space isn't in an office, but in a mental state unbound by the need to prove anything. It's purposeless waiting, presence without a script. Linear thinking can't accept that. It jumps in asking, if I stay blank like this, when will I get results? That question kills creativity. It turns creative action into production, a process under scrutiny. When we truly let go of expectations and live with not knowing, ideas can surface gently, unexpectedly, without reason. They're unlike anything before because they don't follow a repeatable path. They're like a stone dropping into a lake, rippling a surface thought dead by rules and models. To create isn't to move faster, it's to step off the straight path. Not to think more, but to dare not think in the old way. But if even creativity, an inherently free act, gets caught in linear thinking, what happens when people carry this mindset into spirituality? In spirituality, when people approach teachings as a training plan to achieve something, the process itself loses the vitality of religious practice. Spirituality, meditation, and faith have long been seen as paths to transcend suffering, find inner peace, or connect with something beyond the limited self. But when linear thinking enters this journey, even prayer, meditation, chanting, once scripture reading, once sacred, become a form of spiritual transaction. Instead of practicing with an open, desireless heart, people start calculating. They say, if I chant a few hundred times daily, how long until I see results? They meditate 30 minutes each morning, then quietly check for progress. Some even enter spirituality like buying an insurance policy. I'll live rightly, eat vegan, give charity, do good to be liberated after death. And when results don't come, they switch methods, teachers, or techniques, like changing investment strategies for better returns. Linear thinking strips away the most vital part of practice: unconditional aliveness. When the mind always places results ahead, the present becomes a mere tool. Each breath, step, or teaching from an enlightened one becomes a method to reach a goal, not presence itself. Practitioners no longer live in the teachings, but in expectations of the teachings. Worse, many modern spiritual systems unintentionally reinforce linear thinking. They present teachings as a roadmap: stage 1, calm the mind; stage 2, purify; stage 3, insight; stage 4, liberation. It sounds clear, but the mind turns it into a measuring stick. Practitioners start comparing: where am I? How much progress? How far to enlightenment? The more theories, the more formulas. The further practitioners drift from living the teachings authentically. The spiritual path isn't a game to win or lose. It's not a road with a destination where those who go far enough get rewarded. If you still think, I'll do this to get that, it's not the path. It's just efficiency psychology cloaked in spiritual language. True liberation doesn't come as a reward, but only appears when the mind stops demanding rewards. So, if we no longer follow a roadmap, think in patterns, or need progress, how does wisdom operate? When most people think of wisdom, they imagine sharper analysis, faster problem solving, or deeper knowledge. But that's just the surface of wisdom operating linearly, where being wise means being better, surpassing others, or accumulating knowledge. In that world, wisdom is measured by how much you know, how fast you react, or how accurate your reasoning is. But there's a wholly different kind of wisdom that doesn't operate on time's axis. It doesn't rely on accumulation and doesn't move from A to B to achieve anything. This is non-linear wisdom. It's not about being more. It's entirely different. It doesn't progress but bends the whole way of seeing. Non-linear wisdom doesn't arise from learning more, but from letting go of what blocks clear seeing. It's like looking through a dirty window and suddenly realizing you don't need to clean each smudge. Just stop looking through the glass. Clarity doesn't come from trying to see better, but from not seeing the old way. There are moments in life when the more you think, the more confused you get. The more you analyze, the more lost you become. Then, in a moment of no effort, no desire to solve, you suddenly see clearly, not an answer, but that the whole problem isn't what you thought. That's non-linear wisdom. It doesn't provide solutions. It dissolves the need for solutions. Linear wisdom connects dots based on existing data to deduce something. Non-linear wisdom doesn't connect, it sees. It doesn't need diagrams or maps. It stands outside the map and sees reality isn't on any map. Those with linear wisdom are often great at describing, but sometimes can't live what they describe. They can explain profound concepts, but still live needing control. Meanwhile, those with non-linear wisdom may say nothing, yet their actions carry an unnameable stillness. They no longer impose models on life. They see things as they are without needing to fix them. The key is, non-linear wisdom doesn't come from linear training. You can't achieve it by trying harder or planning to grow wiser daily. It's like a breaking open when the old way of seeing stops working, and in that silence, a new door opens, quietly, without grandeur, just a completely different way of seeing. Those with non-linear wisdom don't see themselves as better than others. They don't care about being special. To them, seeing clearly is enough, not seeing some grand truth, but seeing things as they are, without needing further explanation. And because of this, they live lightly. They don't overreact, don't try to fix others, don't try to understand everything. Yet, they're often the ones sought out when the world is in chaos. But even this wisdom gets misunderstood as a state to aim for. People start asking, how do I gain that seeing? How do I enter non-linear wisdom? And once again, the mind that wants to achieve appears. Linear thinking always needs a starting point, a path, a destination. It can't accept a state that goes nowhere. Everything must have a reason, every action a result, every journey a name and clear goal. So, in every field, people carry a quiet need to go somewhere, become someone, achieve something, explain why they live this way. But few dare admit that this need to go somewhere is the root of unease. It makes the present a mere tool. Every moment becomes a means to a better moment. We no longer sit to sit, breathe to breathe, live to live, but to reach a place not yet here. And so, life hangs suspended on an unformed promise. People run from one religion to another philosophy, one system to another method, from healing to growth, from letting go to overcoming, as if they're all transit stations to a place called peace, enlightenment, or success. But if you can't live peacefully now, when will you? A mind conditioned by paths always lives in deferral. It postpones life with intermediate steps. It can't touch reality right here because reality promises nothing. There's no reward for being deeply present. No medal for seeing this moment is enough. There's only stillness, and that's too little for a mind craving achievement. Breaking free from all paths doesn't mean rejecting growth or transformation. It's seeing that true transformation only begins when there's no one trying to transform. When there's no mindset of going somewhere, for the first time, you can be here, not as an act, but as a natural state of living. It's not a destination, not a final state, not the finish line of a journey. It's what's always been here when every path in the mind dissolves. Thank you for listening and joining your channel. Wishing you and your family abundant health.